Oh, hey there. Welcome to Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG 101. I'm your host, Robert World Buildert, and in this short introductory video, we'll walk through everything you need to know to play your first session of DCC, a role-playing game with weird dice, absolutely bonkers spellcasting, and a big rulebook with less emphasis on following the rules and more on going with the flow of a wild pulp adventure. Let's get started. This video production is not affiliated with Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG, Goodman Games, or any Eldritch patrons. Part 1. The Basics. First, if you'd like to follow along, use one of those web links below to download the DCC Quick Start Rules for free from the publisher, or for purchase through one of the affiliate links to support this channel. The first section of the rules introduces the core mechanic of the game. Roll 1d20 and add or subtract modifiers. The goal is to roll high and beat a DC difficulty class. But like other role-playing games, Dungeon Crawl Classics is mostly a conversation between the game master, called the judge, and the other players, describing their actions as courageous, if not foolhardy adventurers, where a player only needs to roll dice when their character attacks with a weapon, casts a spell, or attempts some other risky feat like climbing, sneaking, or negotiating with an adversary. So this core mechanic, and the next one we're about to discuss, cover most of what you need to know to get started as a player. And remember, judges, the fewer rules you take time to explain, the more time you'll have to enjoy the game. Part 2. Weird Dice. Like most fantasy role-playing games, this game utilizes polyhedrons of unusual shapes. Specifically, it utilizes the standard suite of dice, as well as what the author refers to as Zoki dice. D3, 5, 7, 14, 16, 24, and 30. You can purchase these special 7 dice or a full set online, or use a free digital dice roller like www.rollfunkydice.com, or simply use whichever standard polyhedral dice you have that is closest to, but greater than, what you need to roll, re-rolling as needed. As we just went over, you'll typically roll 1d20 to resolve an action, but bonuses or penalties determined by specific rules or by the judge may move your roll along the dice chain, moving up the chain by substituting for the d24 or 30, or down the chain for the 16 or 14. DCC uses this unique rule to increase or decrease the chance of success on a roll, so judges, you may want to tell your players about it before you start. Speaking of which, we need to find some players. Part 3. Finding players for DCC. If you already have a group of people to play RPGs with, tell them, I'd like to run one session of this game. It's got, insert whatever makes it seem fun to you. Then schedule the session. But if you don't already have a group to play with, try asking literally anyone you know, and tell them, hey, you like, insert any pop culture show/movie in the fantasy genre or that references Dungeons & Dragons at least once. Then, you'd probably like this game. It's similar to D&D, but super simple for beginners, and I'm getting a group together to try it out. Would you like to join? And safety tip, if you'll be playing with people you don't know very well, it's polite to keep gruesome or graphic descriptions to a minimum, and be sure to play in a public space, like a game store, restaurant, library, park, or online, where you could even join a community of Dungeon Crawl Classics fans and post an invitation for your beginner adventure. Then get ready to make some characters. Part 4. DCC Level 0 Characters. Instead of presenting new players with dozens of choices and complex rules just to make characters for their first session, DCC players simply roll dice to randomly generate level 0 classless peasant characters, up to 4 per player, many of whom are expected to die during this first adventure. Then, survivors may continue in a future adventure at level 1, with each player controlling 1 or perhaps 2 characters at the judge's discretion. This is known in DCC as the character creation funnel, and while it's always encouraged to change the rules and make the game your own, randomly rolling the stats, occupations, and equipment of these doomed peasants is highly entertaining. No, but seriously, this part is fun. Just rolling up their stats, their jobs as peasants, and their equipment. Everybody loves this part, and I love this art piece. I want a poster of this, Goodman Games. Please put a poster of this on your website. Okay, really broke character there. Just follow the steps and use the tables in the Quick Start Rules, or check out our previous video on making level 0 characters, or get into the game as quickly as possible by instantly generating a party of level 0 characters on www.purplesorcerer.com. Note: even level 0 DCC characters have a luck stat. You can spend points from luck to boost your rolls, and your luck modifier may affect your critical hits and fumbles in combat according to the tables in the Quick Start Rules. Now judges, you stick around as we walk through the introductory level 0 adventure included in the Quick Start Rules, but players, that's about all you need to know. Good luck surviving your first adventure. How'd they gone? Part 5. Your first DCC adventure, The Portal Under the Stars. Judges only. Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Excluding the level 1 information and the random tables, this Quick Start rulebook only contains about 7 pages of rules to read before your first session. And if you've played D&D, you already understand like 80% of how DCC works. The only weird part in here is like one table of some specific attack roll modifiers for combat that uses flat modifiers for some things, dice chain modifiers for other things, but I never use that table. Just use the chain however it feels right to you. But I do recommend skimming a couple of these spells and letting your level 0 party cast a DCC magic missile from a scroll or something, and with a really easy spell check so they get a taste of the amazing DCC magic system in this first adventure. And here we go. The Portal Under the Stars. It's only about 3 pages, but I'm going to break down everything you need to know and give you some suggestions for modifying it. And if you've already run this adventure, please share your best tips or your favorite memories from it down in the comments. That'll really help out the new guys here. Background: an ancient war wizard with superior alien knowledge was entombed in this small extraplanar dungeon, protected by a terracotta army and some other interesting but deadly defenses. And the party knows none of that when this begins. Intro and Area 1-1. Put on some cool music, have everyone briefly describe their group of peasants, then read the intro description aloud to the players. And I suggest immediately continue reading the Area 1-1 description, ending it with the prompt, "What would you like to do?" Essentially, the party is urged to explore this magical portal that only appears once every 50 years when the stars are right, but inside the very first corridor, they're immediately stuck at a locked door with jewels forming a constellation. As written, they're supposed to just wait 2 hours in-game until the constellation on the door is matched by the constellation in the sky, and there's a DC 14 check to figure that out. However, I think it's kind of strange, so keep the check, maybe even lower the DC, but allow them to move the jewels on the door to unlock it instead of waiting. In either case, they can try to force it with a DC 15 check, but this triggers a laser-like trap with a DC 10 save or 1d8 damage, possibly causing the first character death. However, they may notice this trap with a thorough investigation of the door. Area 1-2. Read the room description about 4 iron statues on the far side, poised to throw spears with +2 to hit, 1d8 damage. Also deadly, but not super clear what triggers their attack. So I say, unless a character immediately enters the room, let the party act before the statues, then let them loot those statues for spears and armor, and then go through the next unlocked door to Area 1-3. Read aloud description of a big chamber with a big statue of the war wizard, and a DC 12 check reveals fine scorch marks on the floor. Whether or not the party sees those scorch marks, once any character enters the room, the statue rotates and shoots fire at them with +6 to hit, 1d8 damage, and a DC 10 save, or they're burning for 1d6 damage per round, unless they have a more clever way to put out the fire. But after that first shot, all the characters can act before it shoots again, and it only has 5 total shots. Now, there's a note here about unhinging the doors to use as shields for +4 AC, which is pretty cool. So I recommend having that first shot knock the entry door off its hinges, but otherwise look undamaged, to clue your players in that, oh hey, those doors, like maybe we could, just give them a hint. Otherwise, they'll be headed for one of the other 3 doors in this room to areas 4, 5, and 6. Area 1-4, description of a dead-end room with hanging clay tablets, a throne, and a large demonic serpent that crawls out from behind the throne. It's supposed to speak one line and then immediately attack, but it's definitely cooler to let the party try to talk to this thing first, because it's actually the only thing in this whole dungeon that speaks, as written. So take advantage of that. Then, if they kill the serpent, its body turns to ash, leaving a horn behind. As written, the horn can be used to cast the spell Invoke Patron, which is pretty cool. However, I recommend letting it be an easy-to-use Wand of Magic Missile with only 1 or 2 uses for those fun reasons I described earlier. And there's a note about using this room to scry through space, but it's extremely unlikely for a level 0 character to make that check, and the hanging clay tablets are supposed to depict some history from the background, but you could also have those tablets function as single-use spells for fun. Area 1-5, description of a dead-end burial chamber with ancient armor and weapons, and 7 piles of weird bones that come alive and attack. They leave behind some pretty nice loot, and the party doesn't know it, but destroying the skulls releases the spirits from the generals of the terracotta army at the end of the dungeon. Area 1-6, description of a huge, shining, shallow pool with jewels all over the bottom, and crystalline figures walking around the edge of the pool who are attracted to light, but are not hostile unless attacked. As for the jewels in the pool, they're easy to pry out with a little time and worth 10 silver each, but removing a crystal causes air to bubble up from below. After removing 10 crystals, the pool is noticeably draining, and after 50, the floor buckles, and after 100, the floor collapses down onto the terracotta army below. More on that in a second. First, there's a staircase down to Area 1-7. Description of a little war room with miniature clay armies and 2 silver figurines worth 20 gold each, spotted with a DC 10 check, but we go right from there to Area 1-8. Description of an enormous chamber with an army of 70 terracotta warriors in a rectangular pit overseen by statues of the 7 generals and the warlord on a throne with a pulsing orb atop the throne. Now, if the pool above was destroyed, as written, every warrior in the pit is supposed to take 1d6 damage, but I say just give them all 4 damage and call it a day. However, soldiers who remain in the flooded pit are supposed to take 1 damage per round. So if the party did wreck that pool above, chances are all 70 warriors in the pit have turned to mush by the time the party enters this room. Also, if the skull of a general was destroyed in the burial chamber, that general's 10 warriors are supposed to, quote, spend a few rounds milling about before moving forward to attack. Maybe do that, or just drop them on the dice chain, rolling d16 to attack instead of d20. In any case, each warrior must spend an action to get out of the pit, and there are so many that I think only the outer edge of warriors should be able to exit the pit each round, and they all move very slowly, 10 feet per round as written. So unless the party foolishly charges into the pit, they should be okay, and can probably form a choke point at any door or something. Also, if the warlord statue is destroyed, every other statue de-animates. Done. Finally, there's some fun loot tucked away in here if the party can find it, and let's just say that the pulsing orb on the throne makes for some fun loot too, all detailed in the book, but I think you should leave the orb a mystery here, so your players will have to find out what it does by playing another session and really make the orb cool. Any other treasure, make it unique and valuable to whatever characters survived this first adventure. And if any of that sounds fun to you, please give this video a thumbs up and consider joining the amazing Robert World Buildert patrons who directly support what I do. Thank you, and keep building.